Hello and welcome to a new Google Sheet video in Practical Sheets. Today we're going to do a really cool thing. I'm going to show you 4 ways in which you can drag formulas down. If you've heard this concept of dragging formulas down, well, you may think that it's really simple, and it is, but there are a lot of things we need to take into account, and there are a lot of formulas or functions, even code, that can help us when we need to drag formulas down so that we can pass from the boring and time-consuming way of just literally dragging down formulas to much more automated things where I can, with a button, with a formula, drag down automatically to many rows my formulas. So I know you're going to love this, but before we begin, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel or download the template of this and more than 100 videos in the channel going to the Patreon page you can see in the description. So let's begin. We're going to begin, as I like to, with the most basic ways of doing things, and then slowly, steadily, we'll begin to see more complex ways, more efficient ways of doing things. So we're going to do a very basic formula. It could be just an addition. I'm going to take this A2, this number 23, and I'm going to add to 66. Okay, that's it. Nothing very fancy. I'm not going to accept any suggestion, don't worry. So actually, I will accept a suggestion because this was wrong. Okay, first way of dragging down a formula, I'm going to delete all these columns to the right, they're distracting. So I'm going just to copy and paste, like the usual, we know, Control-C, Control-V, that's it. So I'm going to Control-C, then I'm going to go down manually to the last I want, and we're going to paste with Control-V, or if you prefer doing it more manually still, we're edit, copy, then I choose all of my range, edit, and paste. Sheets is intelligent enough to know that even though I'm pasting it, it's not going to paste the exact formula. If here I have A2 plus B2, then when I paste it in row 3, it'll know that it will be A3 plus B3. There is an entire possibility of videos around absolute and relative references, but I'm not going to go there, because if you put this with a $sign before, then this will change the predefined or predetermined or default behavior of sheets. Okay, but again, I'm not going to get there. So I'm copy and paste. Perfect. There's another more efficient way of doing this copy and paste. Remember I told you we could do Control-C, Control-V, okay? So instead, I'm going to skip the Control-C, one of these key commands. I'm just going to select my basic command, the one where I have my origin formula, my secret formula here, A2 plus B2. Then I have not touched anything in the keyboard. I'm just going to go up until the row I want. I'm going to press Shift and then the mouse, click, left click, and then I will hit Control-D as in duplicate. So instead of having to press first Control-C as in copy and then Control-V as in V as in, I don't know why, but it's paste, I'll just hit Control-D and it will do both in just one swift action. Okay, so it's really nice. I use it a lot. A couple of other ways of doing this. When I click a cell, I'll see this small circle that before was a square, but with the update, the design update in 2023, it's a circle. So I have 2 choices. The first one is I'm going to pick it up, drag it down. I have not released the left key of my mouse. I'll release it here and it'll drag down the formula. This is the classic drag down. Okay, there's another way that is really cool. It's just I'll stand on this small blue circle, I'll double click it, and it'll automatically detect what is the last row where I have data in the B column, and it will drag it down there. So this is really nice. This has a defect that I don't like, that Excel nails it. Let's say that I'm not going to sum, but I'm going to subtract. So I'll subtract, and then I want to drag it down again. All of the previous methods will work. Control-C, Control-V, Control-D, dragging down, but the double click one, if I do it, it won't work. In Excel, it'll work. In Sheets, it doesn't work. So point down for Sheets, because this is a really cool trick. But unfortunately, it only works if all of the cells of the rows down are empty. Okay? So 4 ways: Control C, Control V, Control D, dragging down manually, and dragging down with double click. Okay. What is the problem with this? Well, basically the problem is that if I insert new rows, then I won't have the row. And in some cases, in more complex formulas, it will damage somehow my formulas. Okay, so if I insert a new row, then I have to drag it down. And the same down here. If I put new data, then I would have to drag it down. So there is one trick, cool trick, for when I add new data, and is wrapping up the formula in an if or an if error. Depending on the formula you have, one of those would work. For example, I'm going to delete this one. Let's say, what happens if I drag this down here? It'll give me 0, because Sheets converts the empty spaces to zeros. So 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay? So, but I don't like it. I want to be able to drag this down up until the last row, but that I don't see zeros. So here is where I can put an if. So I'm going to wrap this up in an if function. So the if function will be pretty easy. It'll just say, hey, if A doesn't have anything, so if A17 equals to nothing, this double quotation marks means nothing, then just put nothing. You can leave it blank or with double quotations. Any of both will work. So if I hit enter and then I drag this down, it'll work really, really nice. Or preferably, maybe I want both, because maybe this is empty, but this has a number. And here it won't work. So maybe I need that both are empty for this to not work. So I could do a bit more complex formula, and I'll say and. So I need 2 conditions. First, A17 equals to empty, and the second one is that B17 also equals to empty. I need both to be true. If not, then you can add. So in this case, if one of them has a number, then it will add. Here, I'll put 2, but when both are empty, then it won't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, Control C, as any of one of the techniques we learned. The first technique, I'll copy that. I'll start here in C2. I'll go down, Control Shift down 2 times, so I can get to the last row that I have. I will hit Control V to paste, Control V, and now I can see that I have my formula pasted down all my rows, and wherever I put a number, it will compute my formula. Okay? So this is really cool, but I still have the problem if I insert a row above or insert a row below. I would have then to drag down my formula. So we're going to call this the manual way. Now let's see if there are other ways. So I'm going to delete all of this, and let's delete this so that I have a nice robust table. I'm going to do my basic formula. Again, all my examples will be with this so basic formula, and then you can try on your own to work with more complex formulas. I'll drag it down with right click, as we have done before, and I'm going to introduce you to a really cool concept that is called array formulas. Array formulas is a way to drag a formula down, convert a single cell formula to a multi-cell formula, or what is referred to as array formula or matrix type formulas. I need to do 2 things in an array formula. The first thing, I'm going to modify my arguments. So the arguments need to be a matrix, a range. So instead of adding A2, I'm going to say, hey, add A2 up to A21. Okay, so A2 colon A21, this range, I want to add it to B2 colon B21. Okay, if I hit enter, it's as if nothing had happened. Sheets recognizes. The first thing you need to notice is that it does not give an error. but it's like if I was just adding A2 and B2, that's it. So, okay. But for this to really work, I'm going to stand on any part of my formula. I'm going to hit Control or Command Shift Enter. Now, the only thing that has happened is that my formula has been enclosed in this function called ARRAYFORMULA. It is in caps, first caps, but it doesn't matter if you put it all caps. It's not a problem. I'm going to hit Enter, and now I have a mistake. And the mistake is the following. It says, array result was not expanded because it would overwrite data in C3. What this is saying is that, hey, you told me to do a formula that will add all the rows from 2 to 21. The problem is that you have some data written in column number 3. So I'm trying to expand the function you gave me from 2 to 21, but I cannot do it. So you need to delete it. So I'm going to delete all of this. Delete. And then, like if it was magic, then the numbers will pour down. So it's just one formula, and then it will go down. If you've never seen this concept before, it'll blow your mind. If you've seen it before, maybe you're not watching anymore, because the first time you see it is really, really game-changing. You will never stop using it because it's really cool. Okay, and the cool thing about this, the coolest thing about this, is that if I insert a new row here and I put some numbers, the formula continues to live. And better yet, I could leave this empty so that it will live in all of my rows, even when I insert new numbers, and even if I put new digits here. Okay, the problem is the same problem we had before, the 0, 1, but you already know how to do it. You'll just put an if. So this is your homework. Transform this if without the and, because here comes one of the limitations of the array formula, and is that it doesn't work with all of the functions. It doesn't work with the AND function. It doesn't work with the OR function. It doesn't work with the SUM function. It doesn't work with the SUMIFs function. It does work with SUMIF, the singular, but not with the plural SUMIFs. It doesn't work with index. It doesn't work with filter. It doesn't work with unique. Basically the array formulas and some other ones. So you need to try. I have a video in my Spanish channel showing which formula doesn't work. So if you want, we could do it in English. But this is the limitation. So it's really, really cool. Well, actually, it's one of the limitations. The other one is that it may get heavy. Okay. So if you have a lot of array formulas and a lot of rows and a lot of columns, then maybe your sheet may get slow in a moment. Okay. Array formula, really, really cool. Let's go to another one. I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm not going to use array formula. I've already told you that it has some limitation. Let's say you have the AND function, the OR function, the, I don't know, another thing, and it doesn't work. So I'm going to show you a cooler one because it's less known. Okay. This one is called Lambda. It's super hard to explain because it seems easy, but it's like a bit illogic compared to sheets or to Excel. So you try to explain it and it's a bit hard to understand. So I'll do my best. I'm sure it won't be enough, but I'll try. Okay, so Lambda is basically a way of rewriting a function. So a common function, like the one we have been doing today, is A2 plus B2. That's it. Okay, so we have references. In Sheets, Excel work with references. Okay, A2 plus B2. Easy. If you have ever programmed, you know that programs work with variables. So you do a function and the function has a variable. And then you can, in the argument, change this variable for anything. So this is where the formulas in Excel or in Sheets are very different from programming language. So what Lambda tries to do is to reconcile these two concepts, the references and the variables. So it sounds weird, and it's weirder when you look at it, but it kind of makes sense. So I'm going to translate or transform this formula A2B2 to a formula with functions. Okay, I hope you bear with me. So I'm going to write Lambda, and I'm going to give some variables like you would do in JavaScript or in any programming languages. Num1, the first thing you need to take into account or to be careful is that you cannot have cell numbers and you cannot have cell references. For example, you cannot put B1, C1, D1, and you cannot put names of functions, VLOOKUP, sum, or whatever. Okay, so be careful with that. num1, and then the second will be num2. And now we have the arguments. You could put however many you want, 10, 15. Here we're only going, and they can be ranges also. But for now, it's only two numbers, two very simple, number 1 and number 2. And now we're going to put the formula we did. That was basically num1 plus num2. num1 plus num2. So this is the most basic formula you could do, but actually here you could put whatever you want, VLOOKUPs, sums, average, whatever. So you could use functions in sheets. Again, we could do a video just on Lambda if you want. I'm going to close it. And what do you think will happen? So I had a mistake because actually this num1 is a reserved name for something. I don't know what could be. So we're going to put number 1, num1, and here num2, and here we're going to add num1 and num2. Let's see if here it works. Now there's a mistake, but at least my variables are okay. So what happens? This should work, but the thing is, Lambda is like the skeleton of a function. You still need to give the argument. Sheets is going to say, okay, really cool, Lambda is working, I love it, okay. But in this case, you're using it here in this row. So you need to tell me the references. I know you want to be very fancy and put variables instead of references, okay, cool. But I still need the references. So here is where it gets a bit weird compared to normal formulas in Sheets or in Excel, because Lambda also works in Excel. And here is where you're going to give the references. You have these two arguments, number 1, number 2. At the end, you need to tell Sheets or Excel, hey, which are the references? So in this case will be A2, B2. A2, comma, B2. Let's close it. And it works. Again, so much trouble to do this same function that is the most easy function you could think of, A1 plus B1, and then you need to do this crazy lambda function to do the same. Yes, but if I put this lambda inside another function that I'm going to introduce today, that is map, here is where it gets really, really cool. I'm going to delete this A2, B2 because it was just for the example. So bear with me while it gives the error, and I'm going to put here a map function. This is another one of the new ones. So map needs the arguments and then the lambda. But the difference with what we've done is that here the arguments are some arrays. So the map is a way of taking the lambda and dragging it down to the number of arrays you want, similar to the array formula. So what I'm going to do is number 1 will be this whole column. So I'm going to start here, A2 up to A, similar to what we did in the array formula, comma, and then the number 2 will be B2 up to B. This will be number 2. And third, lastly, we'll have our lambda. Hit enter, and here it is. Okay, again, we have the 0 problem, but you already know how to solve it with an if error or an if. Okay, so the nice thing about map is the evolution of array formula. I have told you that array formula doesn't work with AND, doesn't work with OR, doesn't work with blah, 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 blah. But Lambda plus map works in almost all cases. So, although it may be a bit more difficult to hammer it through, I think you should use this one instead of array formula, although I know a lot of people love array formula. Okay, so this is our third way. And let's see if we have time for the fourth way. I'm going to duplicate this. And for this, we're going to need a bit of code. So I'm going to leave just the basic of basics, A2 plus B2. That's it. We're going to upscript, drag down, and we're going to do this very quickly. So let's first declare very quickly our worksheet. This will be spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet. Then we'll declare our spreadsheet will be ws.get sheet by name. And it will be here, let's call this Google Apps Script, GAS for short. And now we're going to stand in the cell where I know my basic formula is, here in C2. So master formula cell, let's call it. And it will be ls get range. And what did I say? C2? Yeah, C2. And I'm going to use this method get formula. This basically copies the formula. And then I'm going to go up to the last row where I have data. It's very easy with a method that Google Sheets has that's called getLastSheet. So I'm going to go in SS. I'm going to say getLastCall, sorry. So I'm going to take a range with this getRange formula that I've already used, this getRange method. I'm going to start in the next one, D2, or actually it's better this way. I'm going to start in row number 3, here, row number 3 and column number 3, row 3 and column 3. And then I'm going to go up to the last row I find. So this is ss.getLastRow, and I'm going to subtract 2. Why? Because this getRange method doesn't need the absolute number of the last row, but how many rows starting on 3. Given that it's starting on 3, I need to subtract 2. Because if the last row would be 4, and I say, okay, start here and then go 4, it will go up to here, not up to here. This is why I need to subtract 2, accounting for my header and this first formula that I'm not going to replace it, okay? And how many columns? Just 1. And finally, I'm just going to say set formula, and I'm going to set as the formula the master formula set. That's it. I think it should work. Let's save. And let's run it. It's going to ask me for some permissions the first time. Let's go here. And you can see that it dragged it down. I have one problem, that it dragged it down with the formula is mistaken by 1. Okay, so it started in A2 plus B2. So I should start in, even though I'm copying here, I should start pasting it also here. So I'm not going to start in row 3, but in row 2. Row 2. And getLastRow will not be -2, but -1. Let's save and let's run again. And now it works. Okay, the cool thing about this is that if I insert a row and then I run again, it again updates everything. So what I need to have is a trigger or a way of rearranging, updating my formulas. There are 2 ways of doing it. One is with the onEdit function, that every time I do something, it regenerates. Another one is a manual one, and here to have a menu. I'm going to do the second one, but if you want the first one, you'll just ask me and I'll put it as a comment. So let's add very quickly a menu. And I think I have a couple of videos when I do this, so I'm going to go fast. So basically, I'm creating a menu. I'm connecting to the user interface of Sheet, creating a menu that will be called custom, that will appear here. And then I'm going to create just one option for now that is going to call drag down formula. And when I click it, it will call my function drag down. That's it. Let's save. I'm going to run the onOpen. I could also do this by refreshing my sheet. Here I have my custom. So let's insert a couple of new rows. And let's do custom drag down formula. And here it is. Okay. So this is the 4th way of dragging down formulas easily, automatically, and you can use this function and attach it to a trigger every time the file opens, every time, for example, you could here on open also do the drag down. So every time you refresh, you refresh the file, then it will also refresh the formulas. Okay, there are much more things we could do with this, but it was just a primer on dragging. I'm just introducing concepts that may be the subject of entire courses. Array formula is a subject for one entire course or a series of videos. Lambda and Map may also span a series of video, and using Google Apps Script to set formulas, it opens up a Pandora box of multiple possible videos. Okay, so you just let me know what do you like and where do you want me to go deeper. If you want to download the template of these and more than 100 videos in the channel, just go to the Patreon page and where you can ask me any questions regarding these templates. Thank you so much for the Patreons. This is possible thanks to them. See you next time.